There is a country most Americans have never seriously considered visiting. Not because it disappoints the people who go, but because almost nobody told them to look. A country where a Chinese temple, a Hindu shrine, and a mosque can sit on the same street, and nobody treats that as remarkable. Where a plate of food can cost less than a coffee back home, but taste like it came from 3 different continents at once. And where most Americans, if you showed them a map, could not confidently point to it. That country is Malaysia. And the gap between how unknown it is and how much it actually offers is exactly why it deserves attention. So here is the real question worth asking. With so many countries competing for the American traveler's time and money, why does this particular one keep showing up on the most underrated lists year after year from the people who have actually been? Ask an American to name a Southeast Asian destination, and you will usually hear Thailand, Vietnam, maybe Bali. Malaysia rarely comes up first, not because it disappoints the people who visit, but because it never had the marketing moment those other places did. No blockbuster movie built its brand around Kuala Lumpur. No decade-long backpacker mythology turned it into a rite of passage. That absence of hype is, ironically, part of the appeal. Malaysia has spent years quietly building world-class infrastructure, a genuinely diverse culture, and a food scene that specialists frequently rank among the best on the planet, without becoming a victim of its own popularity. Geographically, it sits right in the middle of everything. The country is split into 2 main regions: Peninsular Malaysia, connected to Thailand and pointing down toward Singapore, and Malaysian Borneo, an entirely different world of rainforest, orangutans, and mountain peaks, separated by the South China Sea. Few countries let you experience a modern capital city and untouched jungle within the same short trip. Most Americans who have never been to Southeast Asia carry a rough mental picture. Hot, chaotic, a little unsafe, and hard to navigate without speaking the local language. Malaysia breaks that picture almost immediately. English is not just spoken here. It functions as one of the country's working languages, used in business, education, and daily signage. A legacy of British colonial rule that never faded after independence. A traveler can land at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, take a train into the city, order food, negotiate a taxi fare, and never once feel lost in translation. The other assumption that Southeast Asia means dealing with visas, paperwork, and bureaucracy before you even leave home also does not hold up here. Passport policies do shift over time, so it is worth confirming details close to your travel date. But as of this writing, American citizens can enter Malaysia without applying for a visa in advance, and are typically permitted to stay for up to 90 days for tourism. That single fact quietly removes one of the biggest psychological barriers that keeps Americans choosing easier destinations instead. Kuala Lumpur does not try to overwhelm you the way some Asian megacities do. It reveals itself in layers. From certain angles, it looks unmistakably futuristic, the Petronas Twin Towers rising out of the skyline, once the tallest buildings in the world, still one of the most photographed skylines in Asia. Walk a few blocks in a different direction, and you are suddenly in Chinatown, weaving between stalls selling herbal medicine and dried goods. Turn another corner, and you are standing outside a Hindu temple with towers of carved, painted deities stacked toward the sky, incense drifting into the street. This is not a curated cultural district built for tourists. This is simply how the city has always worked. Malay, Chinese, and Indian communities have lived alongside each other for generations, and the architecture, food, and daily rhythm of the city reflect that layered history rather than hiding it. For an American walking through it for the first time, the effect is disorienting in the best way. You keep expecting the city to declare what kind of place it is, modern or traditional, Asian or colonial, Muslim majority or multicultural, and it never picks one answer because it does not have to. If there is one experience that captures Malaysia better than any monument, it is sitting down at a hawker center. These are open-air food courts, usually just a cluster of small stalls under one roof, where a Chinese Malaysian vendor might be flipping noodles over blistering heat 2 stalls down from a Malay satay grill, while an Indian Muslim stand serves flaky roti and pulled tea into the early hours of the morning. Nobody in Malaysia treats this as unusual. It is simply Tuesday night. The food itself tells the country's story without a single word of narration. Nasi lemak, coconut rice with spicy sambal, fried anchovies, and peanuts began as Malay comfort food and is now eaten by everyone, often dressed up with Chinese-style fried chicken or Indian spice cutlets depending on which stall you order from. Laksa, a noodle soup built from Chinese and Malay techniques, changes character entirely depending on which coast of the country you are standing on. On the west coast, it often turns up rich and coconut-based. Cross to the other side, and it can arrive tamarind sour and fish-based instead, closer to a completely different dish wearing the same name. Roti canai, a flaky flatbread with South Indian roots, has become something closer to a Malaysian national comfort food, served with curry or dal at literally any hour. Order it at 3 in the morning and nobody will look at you twice. None of this is a fusion gimmick invented for tourists. It developed over centuries because trade routes brought Arab, Chinese, Indian, and European influences through this exact stretch of coastline, and instead of those cultures staying separate, they ended up cooking in the same kitchens. For Americans used to ethnic food being sorted into separate restaurants by nationality, eating in Malaysia can genuinely rearrange how you think about what a cuisine even is. Here is where the numbers start to do a lot of the persuading. Cost of living guides updated this year put Kuala Lumpur rents at roughly 80 to 85% lower than equivalent apartments in major US cities. Figures like this shift with exchange rates and neighborhood, so treat them as a general sense of scale rather than a fixed number. A comfortable meal at a hawker stall typically costs the equivalent of $2 or $3 US. A short domestic flight between cities can run less than the price of a movie ticket back home. This is not the same as saying Malaysia is cheap in the sense of feeling low quality. Modern condos with pools, gyms, and round-the-clock security rent for a fraction of what a comparable American apartment costs. Private hospitals frequently attract medical tourists specifically because the quality of care is high while the price tag is dramatically lower than equivalent treatment in the United States. For an American traveler, that combination, genuinely high-quality infrastructure at a fraction of home country prices, tends to produce the same reaction almost every time. The uncomfortable realization that a trip they assumed would be a splurge is actually one of the more affordable serious international vacations available to them. It is also part of why a small but growing number of remote workers now treat Malaysia as a base rather than a stopover. A laptop, a fast internet connection, and a co-working space in a city like Penang can cost less in a month than a single week of rent back home. A detail that rarely makes it into a highlight reel, but quietly reshapes what a vacation here can turn into for someone with the flexibility to stay longer. But it would be dishonest to present Malaysia as some flawless discovery waiting to be unlocked. Anyone who has spent real time there will tell you the full picture is more complicated. The tropical humidity is relentless, and it does not ease up for visitors who assume they can power through it the way they might a dry heat back home. It is the kind of heat that sits on your skin the moment you step outside, and it does not fully let go, even after dark. Traffic in Kuala Lumpur can be genuinely frustrating, especially outside the well-connected rail lines, and driving yourself is not the stress-free option some travelers expect. Air conditioning, which locals treat as an unavoidable necessity rather than a luxury, becomes one of the biggest line items in any extended stay, something first-time visitors rarely budget for correctly. There are also cultural adjustments that go beyond food and language. Malaysia is a Muslim-majority country, and while it is famously tolerant of other religions and lifestyles by regional standards, visitors should expect certain customs: modest dress at religious sites, halal food practices, alcohol availability that varies by state, that differ meaningfully from what a traveler coming from a major US city might be used to. None of this makes the country unwelcoming. It makes it a place that rewards a small amount of preparation rather than none at all. And despite the visa-free convenience, Malaysia enforces strict laws around drugs, with some of the harshest penalties in the world for offenses that might be treated far more casually elsewhere. This is not a footnote. It is one of the clearest lines in the entire country, and ignoring it has ended trips and lives in ways that a quick search before booking would have prevented. This is the point in the story where the fantasy has to meet the friction. And once it does, the country becomes more believable, not less appealing. What rarely makes it into a 30-second travel clip is how much geography Malaysia actually contains within one relatively small country. On the peninsula, you can go from the glass towers of Kuala Lumpur to the colonial shophouses of Georgetown in Penang, a UNESCO World Heritage Old Town where Chinese temples, Indian mosques, and restored British buildings sit within walking distance of each other, in under an hour by plane. A few hours south, the town of Melaka tells an even older version of the same story. Portuguese fortresses, Dutch colonial squares, and Chinese clan houses layered on top of a Malay sultanate that once controlled one of the busiest trade routes on Earth. Walking its streets feels less like sightseeing and more like flipping through 5 centuries of visitors who all decided to stay. From Penang, the beaches of Langkawi are close enough for a weekend trip. Close enough that a traveler could genuinely swap a rainforest morning for a beachfront afternoon without feeling like they rushed either one. Then there is Malaysian Borneo, which barely resembles the same country. Here, travelers can trek through some of the oldest rainforest on Earth, encounter wild orangutans in their natural habitat, and see wildlife found almost nowhere else. Proboscis monkeys, pygmy elephants, hornbills. It is the kind of biodiversity most Americans associate with a multi-week trip to the Amazon, except it exists inside a country most people spend under 2 weeks exploring entirely. That range, futuristic city, colonial old town, tropical beach, untouched jungle. Inside a single, relatively small, English-friendly, visa-free destination is genuinely rare. Most countries make you choose one identity. Malaysia does not ask you to. It is worth understanding why a small but steady number of Americans and other Western expats end up extending a short visit into something much longer. It is rarely just the cost of living, although that plays a role. It is usually something closer to relief, the discovery of a pace of life that does not demand constant hustle to feel legitimate, a food culture where a solo meal at a hawker stall is completely normal rather than something to apologize for, and a genuine, lived-in multiculturalism that does not require explaining or defending itself. People describe a specific kind of exhale that happens a few weeks in, once the initial culture shock fades and the day-to-day rhythm of the country starts to feel less foreign and more like a different, workable way of living. That said, Malaysia is not for everyone, and it would be misleading to suggest otherwise. Travelers who need constant stimulation, nightlife on every corner, or an environment built entirely around English-speaking Western comforts will find parts of Malaysia frustrating rather than freeing. Those who thrive on discovering complexity, layered history, unfamiliar flavors, a slower and more humid version of daily life, tend to be the ones who come back describing it as one of the best trips of their life. There is a particular moment that seems to happen to almost every American visitor to Malaysia, usually a few days in. It is not dramatic. It happens somewhere ordinary, in a hawker center at 11 p.m., watching 3 generations of a family sharing food from 4 different stalls, or on a train platform where nobody seems to be rushing anywhere in particular. It is the quiet realization that a huge amount of what feels normal back home, the isolation of eating alone in a car, the assumption that convenience has to come at a premium price, the instinct to sort people and cultures into separate categories, is not actually universal. It is just one country's specific way of organizing life. And somewhere else, an entirely different set of defaults produces people who seem, by most visible measures, just as content. Malaysia does not lecture you about this. It just quietly exists as proof that the way you have been living is a choice, not a law of nature. Malaysia is not the destination that will show up first when you ask an algorithm for travel inspiration. It does not have the brand recognition of its neighbors, and it may never fully get it, which, depending on how you look at it, is either the country's biggest missed opportunity or its best-kept advantage. What it offers instead is harder to package into a single postcard image. A place where 3 major world cultures built something new together instead of staying apart, where a visa-free 90 days can stretch from glass towers to untouched rainforest, and where the food alone justifies the flight. The countries that get discovered too early often lose something in the process. Malaysia, for now, still feels like something you find rather than something you are sold. Maybe that is exactly why it is worth going before everyone else catches on.